Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Beta Change Minisode. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Tara from Beyond Type 2. We are going to be talking about everything regarding diagnosis, living with diabetes, about Beyond Type 2. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. My name is Ashley. I'm one of the co-founders of Beta Change. And here we are today with Tara from Beyond Type 2. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Ashley.
No problems at all. So, Tara, we were having such a great chat before about living with type 2 diabetes and living with different types of diabetes. Would you like to sort of give us a brief snapshot of your story?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes shortly after the 4th of July weekend in 2017, so almost 2 years ago. I had all like the classic symptoms, the weight loss, my hair was falling out. I was hungry all the time. I was drinking a bunch of water, like 2 gallons a day. Um, and I went to the doctor, and he said, "Well, you have full blown diabetes now." And I was like, "Okay." I wasn't necessarily I wasn't necessarily surprised because I had pre-diabetes when I was 18 after my freshman year of college. And I was already like studying diabetes through my grad program for nutrition, and also my grandmother has diabetes too, so I was familiar with it. I just think I was just a little disappointed because I'd been living a healthy lifestyle for about 4.5 years at that point. Clean eating, eating well, cooking at home, a balanced diet, exercising regularly, and at that time I wanted to become a fitness competitor. So I was just disappointed because like a lot of that was to prevent a diabetes diagnosis, and I ended up getting it anyway. Um, but then later on, a couple months ago, I found out that that was the wrong diagnosis, and that I actually have a form of type 1 diabetes. I have LATA. Some people call
Mm-hmm.
it 1.5. Um, and that actually kind of gave me a sense of relief because I finally got an answer as to why I did have diabetes in the first place. And that kind of like opened up some new doors for me in terms of
Mm-hmm.
understanding how many type 2 diagnoses are actually wrong, and how many actually have LATA. And that's also because like a lot of general practitioners automatically assign a type 2 diagnosis if you don't fit a certain look, or if you do fit a certain like sort of look. So like if you may be a little overweight, which I was, if you're of a certain ethnic group, which is kind of obvious which one, and and if you have a certain age, I was 25, you automatically get a type 2 diagnosis. And I've heard that from
Okay.
countless people. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That's incredible. And, we talked about how living with diabetes, it's so difficult to be boxed into a certain category because, not everyone has the classic type 1 or classic type 2. There's so many people that, have different types of diabetes in different forms. But really, when it comes down to care, it's all about that person-centered care, and it's about making sure that there's empathy there. And this is what I see a lot from the stuff from Beyond Type 2, particularly on Instagram, because I'm on Instagram like every day and I see stuff. So tell me a bit more about, Beyond Type 2 and how you got involved with that.
Yeah. So I got involved beyond type 2. I was at a conference in Baltimore last year, which is where I'm from. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, on the East Coast, and went to my first diabetes conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember speaking up at a panel about how diabetes educators and professionals can or should start targeting millennials and millennials of color who live with type 2 diabetes, um, because we're out here. But a lot of us may be reluctant to share our own stories because of the stigma that comes with living with type 2 specifically. Because type 2, they're the stigmas that you're overweight, or that you don't take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that you're older. And I wanted to be an example in that moment to show like, I'm none of those things. I don't fit that bill, but I still have it. And type 2 diabetes, is in my life, and I have to deal with it, not just from a health perspective, but from a financial perspective. Because diabetes, it costs money. It can cost a pretty penny to manage. And that's when I met Tom Shear, who was our CEO. And kind of from there, I was looking for a job, and I put the word out there that I was looking for a position, and she contacted me, and we chatted from there. And next thing I know, I'm out here, and he told me what the position was about, and it was for Beyond Type 2. He told me it was something that was relatively embargoed at the time, and that they wanted to make a big splash in the diabetes space, focusing on type 2 diabetes and sort of taking a similar approach that Beyond Type 1 has. And if you're familiar with Beyond Type 1, Beyond Type 1 has this amazing like lifestyle brand feel. It makes you feel like you can just live your most incredible life with diabetes, no matter what you do. So, and I was just really happy to be part of that and start and help build that community for type 2s. So I started in December, so a little over 6 months ago. And yeah, and now here I am.
Amazing. And it's so cool. It's great to sort of see that people are recognizing that there is a need for people with type 2 to sort of share their stories and bust those stigmas. But and you also talked about, those misconceptions and those myths that people face.
Yeah.
And you said that, you were able to challenge that because you didn't look the stereotype. So right. What are some of so obviously those fitting that stereotype sort of is one of those challenges, and sort of saying, well, how do I bust those myths? So for someone who's living with type 2 who feels like they've, it may have been their fault and people have told them that, you've done this to yourself, what do you think they can do, or what's your advice that they can do to sort of come up and start advocating for themselves? That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I talk to a lot of people all the time through social, and my advice to them is for them to recognize it's not their fault. Like,
yes.
And also that you can't change the past. And honestly, there's nothing that you could have done at that moment to have really prevented this. And if you're here at this moment, accept kind of where you are, but don't blame yourself, because you're not the blame. Like, you are not at fault for having diabetes. Sure. And it's and removing that initial shame is the most crucial step to actually trying to live a high quality of life past that. So that's my first word of advice. My next word of advice is to do research on it. Like, do research on diabetes and understand the disease itself, but then also ask yourself kind of like, what kind of life do you want to live? So diabetes is part of it, but what are some changes that you need to make? So if you're diagnosed with diabetes, there are changes that you do have to make. So if it's to food, make a list of the types of foods that you like, and start exploring with new healthier options if necessary, and start exploring with new things. When it comes to exercise and wanting to be active, find your favorite activities and start small as well. I always think like the best way to behavior change is to do little mini changes every day, one little act a day, and then let that snowball into a big change. You can set your lofty goals, but I think the thing about setting huge lofty goals is that you still feel that anxiety and pressure to meet them within in an unrealistic time. So if you're just newly diagnosed with diabetes, your first goal could be, okay, I need to schedule a doctor's appointment at the eye doctor. I'll make that my goal for tomorrow, because that's still a step of self-care. Self-care isn't just like, going to the spa. Self-care is also kind of doing the things that you need to do to ensure that you live a better tomorrow. Another goal could be, I'm going to take a walk around the neighborhood for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. No one's saying you have to do a mile or 2 miles, just one small step every day. And this is a mantra that I've been living by for about 6 years, over 6 years now. I always do things one day at a time, one meal at a time, or workout at a time, whatever it is. And I kind of apply that to different things, because that brings me back into the moment. And I think this is all about being in the moment. But understand that diabetes isn't your fault. If
Mm-hmm.
you were diagnosed, at that point, it's time to take action and start understanding, what are some things that you can do today. And there are definitely things that people can do today. And I think from like the mental health side, is to find a person that makes you feel safe. And I would say this is probably one of the more important but also underappreciated aspects of diabetes. It's really important to have a support system.
Mm-hmm.
Your support system can be a doctor, it can be your endocrinologist, but it can be a neighbor who also has diabetes that you know. It could be a friend, it could be a significant other. Find someone who makes you feel emotionally safe and mentally safe and is willing to empathize with you, even if they can't understand exactly what you're going through. You can be open with them anyway, and not just open but vulnerable, and be honest about your fears and insecurities. And that way, if that person is there for you, they'll be able to kind of uplift you during your downtimes.
Amazing. And I saw that Chris has sort of popped up and said hi. So hi, Chris. Love
Hey, Chris. I met her too, but her and Renza at ADA. So
amazing. That's so cool. Like some of the best people you meet on DOC ever. And
yes,
I'm the same in terms of, you find the people that work for you and you find the support network that really lifts you up. And it is all about finding that right person. And sometimes you might not be able to get that straight away.
right.
And I think it's okay to, say, that's all right, I'll keep trying. I think the biggest thing is that you don't give up.
Yes.
And I know that, as much as there are doctors out there who will sort of judge you and tell you things that you don't necessarily want to hear or that it's not, positive, there are equally as many good doctors out there who will look at you as a whole person, like we talked about before, treating you like with the person and respect that you deserve, that
right.
everyone deserves, and sort of lifting you up and getting you to the next place. So
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. All about that, which is so, so good. And you mentioned before you wanting to do some research. So tell me, what are some of your end goals in it? Like, what are you hoping to do your research in? Because I love research. So
yeah. So my I would say like my academic background from graduate school was mainly on the psychosocial sides of diabetes. So one day I actually hope to get into some more research and deep into that. I'm really big on the empowerment theory, and I'm a fan of the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, in particular, because you can go through behavior change in steps. And to me, I'm a list person, and I'm a process person, so it's easy for me to kind of go from A to B to C to D. And I like that they actually account for the relapse. So whenever you feel like you're falling behind the behavior change, but you can go through the cycle again. And the reason why I really love that model is because you can take this to a patient or a person with diabetes, and you can have them point to where they are in this process. So if they're in the contemplation process where they're thinking about the change, but they haven't actually started the planning process, at least where you stand as the professional to kind of like lead them to the next stage. Or maybe they're already in the planning stage and you can get to the action stage. And if they're in the action stage, at that point, your job as a professional is to make sure that they can maintain that action for as long as possible through different motivational factors. So, and I would love to like apply that model to people with type 2 diabetes, but primarily people and lower socioeconomic parts of the country and cities, and see how well they do using this model, and what the types of support and barriers they're facing as well. Because a lot of the barriers to those steps aren't necessarily quote unquote diabetes related, but it may be that they don't have enough money to buy food. The neighborhood in which they live doesn't offer a lot of recreational activity, so they may not be able to go out and walk around the neighborhood because the neighborhood may not be the safest place. And sometimes they may be working really long hours, so they don't feel like they have time to exercise, or they don't have time to really cook at home. And also like resources to to medical care as well, depending if they go to a clinic where they can't get personalized attention, or if they have kids and other family obligations where they have to devote their resources to.
Yeah. And it all comes back down to making those simple changes that you talk about, those simple and achievable changes, but
Right.
also having that support system and that environment that actually enables you to have that, because it's
Yeah.
all well and good to say, yeah, I'm going to eat, really, really well, and I'm going to exercise X number of minutes a day. But then when your environment doesn't enable you to do that, then
Right.
how do you adapt things to do that? So
Right.
yeah, it's really all coming back to that person and sort of finding out what is required, what they feel comfortable doing, what's achievable for them, and what they can actually fit in and what they actually enjoy. And that's really, really important,
Absolutely.
because diabetes is not just a 6-month thing. It's you're in it for the long haul. If you're going to be doing things you don't
Absolutely.
enjoy, you're going to make life pretty miserable.
Yes. And actually, I shout out, and I'm going to shout out my health psych professor, Dr. Arwick, from American University. It was her class that actually made like this change, this career pivot for me, um,
Mm-hmm.
because she really broke it down so well on meeting people where they are. And
Yes.
yeah, she actually reviewed a lot of like my like plans for diabetes care and research back in grad school. So we would have a lot of these conversations about like how do we meet the person where they are. Like as you know, as a professional, of course we want to get them to whatever the final end goal is, but sometimes we have to scale all the way back, even maybe past like the basic of the basics. And if we have to meet them there, okay, then we will. We make sure that we get them up to different levels as best as we can.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Amazing stuff. And so bringing it back to sort of beyond type 2, I think we deviated a little bit.
Yeah.
I, I love you guys on Instagram. So as I said before, I follow you guys on Instagram, and you were so engaging on there in terms of asking people and, questions and sharing their responses and sort of being super positive and upbeat. But, the best thing is that you don't, like anyone can answer those, whether you live with diabetes or not, whether you have type 1 or type 2. Sometimes those answers work for people in terms of what are you going to achieve today, or what's your goal for the next 6 months, that kind of
Right.
thing, which is amazing. And that's seeing that kind of stuff comes through now is quite positive. What's next for you guys at Beyond Type 2? Any plans, exciting plans you can talk to us about?
I would say that the plan is still to continue with building the community and still using like social media to connect. Any big plans? Not sure if I can really talk about that right now, but but I'll just say that like still focusing on the community through social media, particularly Instagram, is still the key for us. We're still just focused on like building that audience and making sure that people feel safe coming to our pages. We've seen like an uptick in engagement in all of our social platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And it's so interesting because I feel like the conversations obviously differ on depending on the platform. Like on Facebook, you have more discussions between actual community members where of course I moderate the comments and I see what's going on, and one of the things I really take pride in is seeing people talk to each other, and they found each other through our space. So and then on Instagram, like you said, like we try to keep it really upbeat. Anyone can answer those questions, and we like to do a mix of like diabetes centered questions, but also questions that are just fun for life. Like yesterday, first day of summer, so we asked, "What are your favorite summer activities?" Certainly that's diabetes centric, but it's our way of recognizing that people are more than just a disease.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm so in love with you right now.
Oh.
It's so good. And as I was talking about this, I'm having a thought of, and this may be a bit of a controversial and sort of a bit of a reflective question. And because we were both initially diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and then our journey sort of strayed and got a little bit more complicated in terms of it's not just type 1 or type 2.
Right.
How do you feel about still representing the type 2 community? Because for me, I am still a huge advocate for young adults with type 2 diabetes, because I know they're undersourced, and they need to be, the spotlight still needs to be on them, because not many people hear about them, and people sort of make a lot of assumptions about them. They still live with a lot of stigma. How do you feel about still representing the type 2 community now that your diagnosis has sort of shifted a little bit?
That's a really great question, actually, and it is something I ask myself that a lot,
Mm,
and I got pretty emotional about it because I didn't know where I stood, and
hmm.
actually I ended up writing specifically about this on the Beyond Tech 2 site, and now that it's been a couple of months, I'm still an advocate, and I
Yeah.
still don't. I know that I have a ladder diagnosis, and I know that that diagnosis is going to lead to me being, I guess, a complete type one as I get older. But my experiences is still fundamentally rooted in the type two experience, so I still draw a lot from that,
Hmm.
and those experiences aren't invalidated just because my diagnosis is wrong, because I lived that experience for nearly 2 years. Um,
Hmm.
and because I've been in that space and I'm still in that space, I'm still part of that community. So I don't feel as apprehensive of like being representative of it anymore. But I did go through like a little bit of an identity crisis there for a while because of it. But then
Yeah.
it's when I realized, like through conversations with people close to me, even they said like, you know, hey, you got into this space for a reason, um, and there's no reason why you still can't fight for these people, just because your diagnosis has changed and you still can share some of those
Exactly.
experiences because those
Yes.
experiences happen and they're very real. So
Yeah. And I think realistically, that's also the experiences of some people is that, they start off, being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and then eventually they get re-diagnosed or they get a different diagnosis down the track that changes things. But it
right,
doesn't mean that their experiences are not validated, exactly
right,
as you say.
right.
And at the end of the day, it does actually just come down to having empathy for people and
Yes,
just I hear what you're going through. I understand it's difficult. I've been there or I'm currently there at the moment. Let's work through this together. What's the next baby step we can take to get out of this ditch or to make things better for ourselves? Is that
yes, yes. I totally agree.
right?
Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up empathy again. Like empathy is the most basic, but it's also the most powerful thing that you can have in this space. Empathy
Absolutely.
and passion go a long way. And
Hmm.
it's important to realize that when you're talking to people who are willing to share their stories with you, um, that it is a privilege. It is always a privilege for someone to confide in you about something that's personal. And diabetes is a personal subject.
Hmm.
Um, and for someone to come to say, hey, I'm answering this Instagram question, and also our Instagram answers are anonymous as well.
Hmm.
But just sharing is an honor for us, and but just talking to them and like they're people because they are, um, is the most powerful thing that we can do. It's about recognizing their whole experiences, not just like how much insulin do you take a day, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. There's so much more to life than your medication and all
Right,
these things that happen. Yeah.
right, more than your medication. Yes.
You absolutely, and that's so amazing. So what we'll do is we'll share all of the links to Beyond Type 2 and some of those blog posts that you mentioned as well in the comments below. For some reason, I'm not able to share them at the moment because my thing's not working, which is a bit sad.
Oh
But
no.
no, but thank you again. I think we might start wrapping up, but thank you so
Yes.
much for taking time out from your busy schedule for sharing your insights. And I feel like my cup's been filled again because this has been such a great conversation and chat with you.
Thank you,
And
Ashley. Thank you so
so
much. And
excited for all the things that you're going to do in the future.
oh, thank you. And we really truly appreciate that. I mean, like the diabetes community is a community that needs some light, and especially the type 2 community. And
Mhm.
we want to make it so that people with type 2 don't need to feel ashamed about having it. And they could be open about their positive experiences or all of their experiences with it, and really start breaking those stereotypes. And we the only way we do that is together, using all of our voices.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, beautiful words to end this amazing Minisode on. Thank
yeah.
you so much again, Tara. If we have any other audience questions in the comments, I'll try and link them back to you as well.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you
Ashley.
so much for taking time, and we'll chat again soon.
It was fun.